welcome to Inspired Minds 360 podcast. I want to thank everybody from now. This is the first episode we're doing, and everybody that follows this podcast and listens to me and whatnot. I will be going live some days, and I'll let you all know moving forward. But like I said, definitely stay with me, grow with me. I love any support that I anticipate getting. I appreciate that. On this podcast, we will be talking about inspirational things that have inspired you, things that you've done to inspire someone else, and hopefully gain inspiration as well as learn. I'm someone that definitely wants to learn from my peers and whatnot, and hopefully with this podcast again we could have a conversation. That's my whole thing. Let's have a conversation at the end of the day, right? So without further ado, I would like to kick this off with a video that I seen the other day, and it kind of disturbed me because this is a video that showed a black man in America again being manhandled, mistreated by law enforcement. And it was unfortunate because for me, at the end of the day, this is one guy who didn't comply with their request, so to speak, and it took at least 5 officers to subdue this guy, and I think that they overdid it. I do understand sometimes, in law enforcement, and let me say this, let me jump on and say this. I'm not taking anyone's side in the matter. It's what I observed, and I'm just touching on it. If you look at the video, clearly you can see that this guy has no weapon in his hand. This guy is not charging at them or necessarily making threats, but he's not complying with their request, and so it escalates into them, the officers, tackling this man down to the ground and manhandling him. Me personally, I could touch on a personal story of mine, where I was mishandled or manhandled by police coming home one day, and I was pretty much in a situation where I had went out with a young lady when I was younger, went to the movies, had a nice time, and was coming home. Now, the young lady that I went out with was actually a friend of mine, and long story short, she ended up, going her way. I was going my way, and I'm walking home, and in the distance, I see police. A lot of officers parked up there, and it seemed as though something was going on. There was some type of activity going on. But long story short, from a distance, walking toward them, I could see a couple of them looking in my direction. I'm walking toward them thinking, okay, just police on the corner, doing their routine thing, more than usual, but I didn't think anything of it. Unbeknownst to me, they were actually looking for someone that was involved in a domestic abuse situation type deal, right? So walking toward them, one of the officers kind of signaled me over to come to them. And now mind you, at this time I'm on the phone. I think I was calling my mother, my father at that time, and I'm having a conversation, simple conversation. So as I get there, they snatch the phone out of my hand. They surround me, and I'm talking about, this is about at least 10 to 15 officers. Quickly, pat me down, search my pockets, all that, and then proceed to accuse me of beating up some female. The crazy thing about this story is that the officer that was speaking to me was telling me, hey, we know you did it, accusing me of beating up this female. And I'm like, well, what? So it's in that moment, it's confusion, it's fright, it's all of these emotions are running through my body, because at that time I'm like, what the hell are y'all talking about? So he's accusing me, and he's just basically going in, we know you did it, she said you did it, XYZ, and I'm like, well, who said I did it? Trying to defend myself. The craziest part about the situation, about the story, is just that the officer says to me, yeah, didn't you just come from the movie theater? Now, mind you, people, I did come from the movie theater, but I was in a whole different city, and the female that I went with, like I said, was a good friend. She lived on the opposite side of town from where I was living, right? So I quickly had to adjust my story and say, hey, you know what? I actually came from my aunt's house, on this street, on this address, da 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 da. Now, put yourself in that scenario if you can. Could you imagine if I did say to them, yeah, I just came from the movie theaters? Those words alone would have had me definitely in the back of a police car, in jail, charged with something that I had nothing to do with. You know what I'm saying? So, in that instance, I had to think quick. And my response really is what saved me. Because after I said that, the officer was quickly like, hey, we know you didn't do it at the end of the day. We just had to stop you and question you, XYZ. But just imagine if I had told that officer, yeah, I did come from the movie theater, which I did, but totally different female, and innocently I could have ended up in a situation that could have gotten real sticky for me, very sticky, So again, I'm not bashing law enforcement. I'm not here to bash law enforcement. That's not my deal. My deal is just to point out that, with law enforcement, depending on who you're dealing with, you could find yourself in a sticky situation. And seeing that video, seeing that guy, how they manhandle him, was sad, because I don't know what happened prior to that incident, but I do know that they were talking to him and asking him to do something or whatnot. As you can see in the video, and he wasn't complying. And yeah, he must have given them, some lip, as we say, but still, was that necessary for 4, 5, 6 officers to tackle him like that? No, that's overkill to me, overdoing it at the end of the day. Because I put myself again in that situation. Had I said yes, I came from the movie theater, you're talking about 10 to 15 officers that would have probably did the same thing, tackle me to the ground. You know what I'm saying? Based off of something that they accused me of. Now, let me say this. And I do know that sometimes if officers encounter, someone, I'm not going to say a suspect, because every suspect is not a suspect, but if they encounter someone that they deem a threat, or they think is harmful, or they think is on drugs, or XYZ, I do understand that as an officer, you're dealing with someone that's not in the right mental state, and it can be a challenge to deal with that person, right? So again, we don't know what happened prior to what we just seen, but at the end of the day, still, I don't think that it took this many officers to do that. You know what I'm saying? Right? For people who have encountered police, who have encountered that type of aggressiveness from police, you can understand where I'm coming from at the end of the day. I don't know. I think for me, I would tell anybody encountering police officers, especially the ones that you could tell that are coming off with a certain type of aggression, and seem like they want to have you come on a character. My best advice is to keep calm, talk calmly, don't make any sudden movements, because as we've seen with how many other videos involving minorities, black men with law enforcement, many times it doesn't go well. Don't forget where we are. We're still in America at the end of the day. I would tell anyone, be cautious, be careful, because we live in some funny times at the end of the day, right? My thing is just be alert about what's going on. Know where we are, at the end of the day. We're still in America, which is, at the end of the day, a system designed that was meant for us. There's a movie in theaters right now called The Chronicles of Racism in America. Go check that out if y'all haven't seen that. Definitely go see that. That's a must-see. I've seen it twice, and it basically talks about the historical tragedies that have happened. Many of the historical tragedies, not even digging deep as they could have gone, but touching on some historical things that I think in this country you need to know as a black person and as a minority. One of the things that they touched on in the movie, not to give away too much, but they talked about the badge that sheriffs have, from generations, has always meant something negative. even to today. You ask a younger person today, about law enforcement, they don't necessarily have the greatest outlook on law enforcement, even if they've never had a negative encounter. So where does that come from at the end of the day? And basically in the movie they were touching on that badge stems from way back, especially in this country, and from generations to generations, it has always been seen as something negative. Why? Because it was initially meant for slave catchers, right? To catch slaves, right? So I encourage you all to go see that, please. The Chronicles of Racism in America. It's in theaters now. Try to catch it if you can. But yeah, they talked about that. They touched on that. I just don't think that at the end of the day, no human should be handled like that. Period. You see how they handle him, and I can't support that. That's just my stance on it. Again, I'm not here to bash law enforcement. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying, look how this went. This could have been, another unfortunate death of another black man in America again. I definitely want people's comments on what they think about that. How they feel about that. Because I'm sure somebody has some stories or some dealings with police that have been negative. Like myself, again, and that wasn't the first encounter. I've had many encounters that have been negative. I know I'm wrong. Not all have been negative, but the ones that have been negative are instances where I definitely had negative feelings about certain officers, not an entire police department. No. About the officer himself, how he conducted it, how he spoke to me, things of that nature. So, from people out there who have had negative experiences, please share them and comment on what you think about this video. For the people that have not had any negative experiences, I'd definitely like to, read your comments and see what's up and see what you think about the video, because, not because you haven't had that experience or negative experiences means that you will never have that. I want to shout out Go Black to Africa. Here's the channel I follow on YouTube and whatnot. Positive brother at the end of the day. And he travels, from the US to different countries in Africa. I definitely want to big him up because he's doing his thing right now. And he went to an African country. I want to say it was either Uganda or Kenya. I can't remember. It was a couple episodes back. But in his quest to show people of the African diaspora that, hey, for all of y'all who are in the Western world, who've had, for example, negative dealings with law enforcement, or who feel as though they're struggling in life and they want a different experience, come to Africa and see what's what. And one of the things that he did is he was traveling through a country, and I think he was either at a border crossing, or it was or they got stopped for some reason by police and whatnot. But long story short, he showed the encounter he had with the officer, and the officer was nothing but pleasant. They've asked him a few questions, where they're going, where they're from, XYZ, and pointed out whatever was wrong at that time, the vehicle or with their ID or whatnot. But you could see that the experience was completely different, and that was what he was trying to point out, that listen, look, I'm here in Africa, and look at the treatment that I'm getting from a police officer. Look at how they speak to me, look at the level of respect I'm getting as a black man. He also went on to say that, he, with him being in Ohio where he's based, time and time again he's gotten harassed by police. He's gotten followed by police, trying to intimidate him, following him for how many miles, things like that. So, I'm talking to my people out there who feel as though they're sick and tired of dealing with this type of culture. I want to touch on the fact that, not all police officers are bad people. I'm saying for the ones out there who know that at the end of the day they ain't shit and they're doing, negative things like that at the end of the day to intimidate people. Those are the ones I'm speaking about. I could care less what race you are. If you're doing things to intimidate people, to scare people and whatnot, those are the ones I'm talking about. And for my people who've had those encounters, who feel as though again they've had enough, I encourage you to take a trip outside of here, outside of America. Do that. See for yourself what it's like to go to other countries and see how police move. Every place has its good and bad, definitely, but unfortunately, due to the fact that this country has a certain history, again, as a black man and as a minority in this country, unfortunately, sometimes we fall, into situations where just because of the color of our skin or how we look or XYZ, unfortunately we're profiled, we're harassed, we're intimidated. So I'm just saying at the end of the year, if you're tired of that, I encourage anybody to take a trip. Take a trip and go look for yourself and go see for yourself what you think. Because it's only then will you truly say to yourself, well, damn, I went here and I had a whole different encounter. You know what I'm saying? So, do that. And for the ones who have, tell me, what kind of experiences you've had. Has it been good? Has it been bad? Because I would definitely love to know, people's experiences. I've been to Africa myself, and on that journey, again, I encountered police. I went to Ghana. I encountered police, and at no time in my trip did I encounter police that were, harassing me or trying to intimidate me, or, that was never the deal. You would have officers who might stop you. Let's say the car is full with people. It's at the max of passengers. They may stop you and ask you, how many people in the car, and could you give them some money, or where you come from, if you come from away from the States or XYZ, and did you bring something for them, and so if any harassment, that is what I've experienced, and again, that is way different to me than you stopping me simply because I'm a black man and you feel that you have the right and authority to do so. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it's different. The treatment is different. I wasn't talked to as if I was a suspect. Any video that exposes police officers that are doing negative out there needs to be brought to the light. Period. Because that could have been me that you see on the floor there. Or it could be you. So, I understand that at the end of the day, officers have a job to do. I mean, imagine a world without officers. My dad always used to ask me that sometimes. Well, imagine a world without police officers. It'd be crazy. So I understand they have a job to do. And, I know some officers personally who would, always tell me, we're the most hated, but we're the first ones to be called when you need us. So let's give the ones who are doing their jobs, let's give them the credit. Let's give them, let's big them up for the ones that are out there doing right by the badge, for the ones that are sincerely trying to help the community, are sincerely trying to investigate crimes properly. For the ones that are genuinely in it, to make a difference or to protect and serve. You know what I'm saying? Let's big them up. Let's give them a shout out for those officers out there. I thank y'all for that. For doing your job, for doing the right thing, and not abusing the badge, not abusing the gun. How much more must we endure as minorities, as black men? You'll have people out there who say, oh, well, I haven't had that experience, I haven't had negative experiences, and great, and that's good for you. I'm not wishing that you go through that. I'm not wishing that you encounter police that treat you, in a negative manner. That's not what I'm doing at the end of the day. But what I am saying is, don't think that you're safe, from these type of encounters at all, regardless of where you live, regardless of your ethnic background. Because no matter how you look at the picture, we are in a European system that was not designed for us at the end of the day. That's the bottom line. This wasn't designed for us. So you better believe that they are going to have people who abuse that badge, abuse that gun. Just like they did, back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, about the Black Wall Street, that story. And that's one of the things that they touched on in the movie as well. The fact that at that time, blacks were thriving in Oklahoma with movie theaters, barbershops, hotels, private planes, you name it, they had it, and they were living well. And simply because someone got accused of touching some white woman, it blew out of proportion, and it got to a point where people in the community stood up for this young man who they accused of touching this lady, and because they stood up for their community and for their people, buildings were burnt to the ground. People were shot dead. You know what I'm saying? And you think law enforcement at that time didn't know who was involved in that? No one was prosecuted in Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre. Not riots, it was a massacre, that's what it was. No one was prosecuted. And that's what they were touching on. Even back then, could you imagine law enforcement didn't have so-called knowledge of who rented those planes, of who was in the footage with shotguns, driving around shooting people? Law enforcement didn't know that. So, again, law enforcement in this country has stemmed from way back from slave catching time at the end of the day to now. And yeah, they're not technically catching slaves anymore, but these departments, still unfortunately have people that have certain mindsets that are not a positive outlook, when it comes to someone like myself, a minority, a black man at the end of the day. So speak slow, move cautiously, and think before you react. Right? If we could avoid more deaths out here, let's do that. Let's try to do what we can do to avoid deaths out here, because at the end of the day, they still have some trigger happy officers out there. Period. That's the reality of it. Anyway, this is A Plus, Inspired Minds 360 podcast. I appreciate you all for jumping on this first episode. I appreciate all the love. I appreciate the followers. Please go ahead, subscribe, hit that bell, do that. All right. I'll see you all. I'm out later.